February 26, 1943. 0630 hours. Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. The desert wind whips through the jagged valleys, carrying the bitter tang of gunpowder and diesel fumes. Dust devils swirl around the hulks of burned-out M3 Stuart tanks, their turrets twisted like forgotten relics. In the dim pre-dawn light, shadows of Afrika Korps soldiers move like ghosts, scavenging ammunition from the American wreckage. A lone Panzer IV rumbles to life, its engine growling a low threat across the barren expanse. You can almost feel the ground tremble under its tracks, the heat rising from scorched earth where just hours ago, chaos reigned. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, stands atop a rocky outcrop, binoculars pressed to his eyes. His greatcoat flaps in the breeze, dust caking his peaked cap. At 51, his face is etched with the lines of endless campaigns: France, Tobruk, El Alamein. But today, there's a flicker of satisfaction in his sharp gaze. The Americans had crumbled. Their two corps, under Lieutenant General Lloyd Fredendall, had been green, disorganized, their defenses porous as sand. Rommel's panzers had sliced through them like a hot knife through butter, capturing thousands, scattering the rest into the hills. He lowers the binoculars, turning to his aide, Major Hans-Joachim Schriepler, who's scribbling notes in a weathered logbook. The Amos, Rommel mutters, using the German slang for Americans, they fight with machines, not with heart. Their soldiers are soft, city boys playing at war. Schriepler nods, but Rommel's mind races ahead. The victory at Kasserine was swift, but incomplete. Montgomery's 8th Army presses from the east, and these Americans, they learn fast. Too fast. As the sun crests the horizon, painting the pass in blood-red hues, a dispatch rider skids to a halt on his BMW motorcycle, engine coughing dust. He salutes sharply, handing over a sealed envelope marked Ultrageheim, top secret. Rommel tears it open, his eyes scanning the intercepted Allied signals. Eisenhower is furious. Fredendall is out. And replacing him. George S. Patton Jr. Rommel's jaw tightens. He's read about this man, the brash cavalry officer, the tanker who idolizes speed and audacity. Patton's exploits in Sicily. No, wait, that's future whispers. But intelligence paints a picture: Olympic pentathlete, master of armored warfare, a leader who drives his men like a whip. Rommel paces, the gravel crunching under his boots. He's seen Patton's type before: unpredictable, relentless. In France, his own Ghost Division had stunned the world with blitzkrieg fury. But this American, he could mirror it. Gentlemen, Rommel calls to his staff officers gathered in the makeshift command tent, maps sprawled across a folding table lit by a flickering lantern. The air is thick with cigarette smoke and the faint metallic scent of blood from a nearby aid station. Colonel Fritz Bayerlein, his chief of staff, looks up from plotting supply lines. We've humiliated the Americans, but do not underestimate their response. This new commander, Patton, he's not like the others. He's a storm waiting to break. The officers murmur, some scoffing. Another Yankee blusterer, one says. But Rommel leans forward, his voice dropping to a grave timbre, eyes piercing each man. No. I've studied their doctrines. Patton understands armor as we do: mobile, aggressive, without mercy. If we give him time to reorganize, this American will destroy us. Mark my words, he will turn their rabble into a blade aimed at our throat. Outside, a Stuka dives low overhead, its siren wailing like a banshee, drowning the distant rumble of artillery. Rommel steps out, staring west toward the American lines. The wind carries echoes of shouted orders, the clank of rebuilding. He knows the clock is ticking. 3 weeks, that's all it might take for Patton to strike back. But as Rommel turns away, a chilling report crackles over the radio: Patton has arrived in Tunisia, his voice already thundering through the ranks. The Desert Fox feels a rare twinge of unease. The game has changed. March 5, 1943. 0745 hours. Near Tebessa, Algeria. U.S. 2 Corps Rear Headquarters. A battered olive-drab staff car fishtails to a stop in front of the canvas command tent, throwing up a choking cloud of red dust. The door slams open before the vehicle fully halts. Out steps Major General George S. Patton, Jr., boots crunching gravel like he's grinding bones. At 57, he moves with the coiled energy of a much younger man, silver hair slicked back under the gleaming helmet, ivory-handled Colt .45s riding low on each hip, eyes hidden behind tinted goggles that reflect the desert glare like mirrors. He doesn't wait for the salute. Where the hell is Fredendall's map room? He barks at the nearest lieutenant, who stammers and points. Patton strides forward, riding crop slapping against his leg with every step. Inside the tent, the air is stale with cigarette smoke and the sour smell of unwashed bodies. Officers freeze mid-sentence as the general sweeps the room with a glance that could strip paint. He stops at the large situation map pinned to the wall, red and blue grease pencil arrows showing Rommel's last thrust, the American lines still broken and bleeding. Patton stares at it for 10 long seconds. Then he rips it down in one violent motion, letting the paper flutter to the dirt floor. "Gentlemen," he says, voice low but carrying the weight of a howitzer round, "this is no longer a retreat headquarters. This is now the headquarters of an attacking army." The room is silent except for the distant cough of a 105mm howitzer being test-fired. Patton turns to the assembled colonels and majors, many of them still wearing the dazed expressions of men who have just been whipped. He points at the first one he sees. "You, Colonel. Your regiment lost 2 battalions at Fade Pass because you waited for orders that never came. From this moment forward, the only order is attack. 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 Attack." He paces now, boots thudding rhythmically. "I don't give a damn if the enemy has 1,000 panzers. I want his commander to wake up every morning wondering where the hell my tanks are going to hit him next. We are going to move faster, hit harder, and never, never, give ground unless it's soaked in German blood." A young aide tries to hand him a cup of coffee. Patton knocks it away without looking. "I didn't come here to drink. I came here to kill Nazis." He jabs a finger at the map table. "Get me every scrap of intelligence we have on Rommel's dispositions. Every patrol report, every prisoner interrogation, every air photo from yesterday. I want to know what the bastard eats for breakfast." Outside, the camp is already transforming. Patton's orders ripple outward like shockwaves. Engineers tear down the sandbagged bunkers Fredendall had built miles behind the lines. Supply trucks that had been hoarding rations are ordered forward. Tank crews, still licking wounds from Kasserine, find their M4 Shermans being rolled out of repair parks at gunpoint. Patton walks the motor pool himself, slapping hulls, checking tracks, cursing crews who haven't cleaned their guns. One sergeant, face blackened with grease, tries to explain why his platoon's Shermans can't move yet, transmission trouble, bad fuel. Patton steps close enough that the man smells the sensen on his breath. "Sergeant," he says quietly, "if that tank isn't rolling in 30 minutes, I'm going to have you court-martialed, shot, and buried in the same hole. Then I'm going to drive the damn thing myself." The sergeant salutes so hard his hand trembles. The tank moves in 23 minutes. By noon, Patton has sacked 3 battalion commanders on the spot. 2 more are relieved by sundown. He promotes captains to major, majors to lieutenant colonel, on nothing more than the look in their eyes. "You want to live," he tells one shaken infantry officer. "Then follow me. I'm going forward. You either come with me or you get out of my way." As the sun begins its long descent, painting the desert in molten gold, Patton stands on the hood of a jeep, field glasses scanning the eastern horizon toward the German lines. Somewhere out there, Rommel is regrouping, probing, waiting for the Americans to lick their wounds. But Patton's lips curl into something that isn't quite a smile. The radio in the command half-track crackles. A spotter plane reports increased German reconnaissance activity near Gafsa. Rommel is sniffing for weakness. Patton lowers the glasses. His voice, when he speaks, is almost gentle. Let him come. Let him think we're still broken. He turns to his chief of staff, Brigadier General Hobart Gay, who's been silently taking notes. Hobart, tell the ordnance boys to paint every tank they can get their hands on with my initials, GSP. I want Rommel to see them coming. The general steps down from the jeep. Dust swirls around his legs like a living thing. For the first time since Kasserine, American soldiers begin to straighten their shoulders when they see him pass. Fear is still there, but something else is growing in its place. Purpose, and somewhere, 80 miles east, a German radio intercept officer transcribes an American transmission that makes him pause. Patton has arrived. Expect aggressive armored operations within days. The Desert Fox has been warned. Now the storm is here. March 16, 1943. 0430 hours. Forward Assembly Area, 20 miles west of Gafsa, Tunisia. Darkness still clings to the desert floor like spilled ink. The only light comes from the low red glow of cigarette tips and the occasional flare of a match cupped in gloved hands. Hundreds of Sherman tanks sit in neat company lines, engines off, crews huddled in clusters beside their steel beasts. The cold bites through wool greatcoats and leather tanker jackets. Breath fogs in the pre-dawn chill, then the silence shatters. A single piercing whistle cuts the night, Patton's personal signal. Engines roar to life in a rolling thunder that builds until the ground itself seems to vibrate. Headlights snap on in disciplined sequence, twin beams stabbing eastward like lances. The 1st Armored Division, newly blooded and reforged under Patton's relentless hand, begins to move. You feel it in your chest first, the deep bass pulse of 500 horsepower Wright radial engines, the metallic clatter of tracks chewing gravel, the sharp bark of exhaust. Tank commanders stand in open hatches, goggles down, scarves wrapped tight against the dust that will come with dawn. Infantry ride shotgun on the rear decks, Thompsons slung across chests, faces set in grim determination. Patton leads from the front, as always. His command M3 half-track, painted with 3 huge white stars and the legend, GSP, in foot-high letters, darts between columns like a sheepdog herding steel wolves. He stands in the back, one hand gripping the .50 caliber mount, the other holding a map board illuminated by a small hooded flashlight. His voice crackles over the command net, calm, almost conversational. Speed, gentlemen. Speed is armor. Speed is surprise. Speed is life. We hit Gafsa before Rommel knows we're coming. Behind the armor, the infantry of the 1st Infantry Division, the big red one, marches in long olive-drab columns. Their new commander, Major General Terry de la Mesa Allen, has absorbed Patton's gospel: no stragglers, no excuses, no retreat. Soldiers who once ducked at the first shell now march with bayonets fixed, helmets low, eyes forward. AT-0600, the 1st American reconnaissance patrols crest the low ridge overlooking Gafsa. German sentries are caught eating breakfast beside their half-tracks. The fight is sudden, brutal, and short. A platoon of M3 Stuarts rolls over the crest, 37mm guns barking. German machine guns answer, stitching red tracer arcs across the dawn. Then the Shermans arrive, 75mm main guns speaking with authority. Within 20 minutes, the town's outer defenses are burning wrecks. Patton watches from a forward observation post, field glasses never leaving his face. A young lieutenant beside him whispers, "General, we're ahead of schedule." Patton doesn't lower the glasses. "We're not ahead, son. Rommel is behind." By 0900, Gafsa is American again. German supply trucks burn in the streets, their drivers fleeing on foot into the hills. Patton's tanks don't stop. They refuel on the move, jerry cans passed from infantry to crewmen without halting. The column presses east toward El Guettar, the gateway to the eastern dorsal. Somewhere in the German rear, the first frantic radio messages are being sent. Rommel's headquarters, a camouflaged command bus hidden in a wadi near Metzouna, receives the news at 10:30. Colonel Bayerlein bursts into the map room, face pale beneath the desert tan. Herr Feldmarschall, American armor has taken Gafsa. They are advancing on El Guettar in strength. Reconnaissance reports at least 2 full armored regiments, moving fast. Rommel stands motionless, staring at the map. The blue grease pencil arrows that had marked American retreat now point the other way, straight at his flank. He speaks without turning. How many? Estimates, 200 tanks, perhaps more. And they are not stopping to dig in. They are driving straight through. Rommel's fist closes slowly on the edge of the table. The wood creaks. For the first time since Tobruk, he feels the familiar tightening in his chest, the sensation of an opponent who refuses to play by the expected rules. That he turns to his operations officer. Pull the 10th Panzer Division back from the Mareth line. I want them in position to meet this thrust by tomorrow morning. And get me every Stuka we can spare. If Patton wants to play at speed, we will give him fire from the sky. But even as he issues the orders, doubt flickers behind his eyes. The Americans are no longer the disorganized rabble of Kasserine. They move like Germans, fast, hard, without pause. And at their head is the man he warned about. The desert fox steps outside the bus. The sun is high now, turning the desert into a furnace. He shades his eyes, staring west. Somewhere out there, under that shimmering heat haze, George Patton is coming, and he is coming fast. March 23, 1943. 0510 hours. El Guettar Valley, Tunisia. The moon is a thin sickle over the olive groves when the first American shells start walking the German lines. Not a barrage. Patton despises barrages. This is deliberate, measured fire, 3 rounds per target, then shift. Each 105 mm shell detonates with a flat crack that rolls across the valley like a giant slapping the ground. German sentries dive for cover, but the shrapnel finds them anyway. On the reverse slope, the 1st Armored Division's Combat Command, CCA, waits in absolute blackout. Colonel Robert Stack's tanks are hull down behind a low ridge, engines idling, radios silent. Stack himself stands in the turret of his lead Sherman, night vision goggles pushed up on his forehead, listening to the shelling. He doesn't need to see to know what's coming next. At 0525, the guns stop, silence rushes in, thick and unnatural. Then, from the American right flank, a single flare arcs skyward, green, then red. The signal. Stack drops into the turret. Driver, advance. Button up. 212 tanks lurch forward in a staggered line, tracks chewing through the soft earth. Behind them, the 26th Infantry Regiment fans out in assault waves, bayonets fixed, gas masks slung but ready. The Germans have dug in along the valley floor, anti-tank ditches, minefields, concrete pillboxes manned by the 21st Panzer Division's Reconnaissance Battalion. They expect the Americans to come straight down the road. Patton has other ideas. The tanks swing left, hooking around the flank through a dry wadi the Germans thought impassable. Stack's lead company hits the German line at 0537, guns blazing. A Panzer IV, caught refueling, erupts in a fireball that lights the entire valley. German machine guns open up, tracer rounds stitching the dark. American gunners traverse turrets with practiced calm, boom, reload, boom. By 0600 the sun is up, turning the sky the color of brass. The Germans counterattack with a company of Mark IIIs led by a young lieutenant named Hans von Luck. He gets 2 tanks across the anti-tank ditch before a 76 mm round from a hidden Sherman punches through his turret ring. The explosion is so violent the turret sails 20 feet into the air. Von Luck survives, crawling out with his face burned raw. He staggers back toward his lines, passing American infantry who ignore him. They're too busy advancing. One private from Brooklyn offers him water. Von Luck takes it, stunned. Up on the ridge, Patton watches through binoculars, his half-track idling beside him. He's been up all night, chain-smoking Chesterfields, pacing like a caged tiger. Now he grins, a wolfish, terrible thing, tells CCA to keep pushing. I want the valley floor by noon. And get me air support now. At 0615, P-40 Warhawks from the 33rd Fighter Group scream down the valley at treetop height, guns winking. German flak guns try to reply, but the fighters are too low, too fast. One P-40 takes a hit and spins into the ground, but the rest strafe the German positions until their ammunition belts are empty. By 0800, the German line is folding. Prisoners stream back toward American lines in ragged groups, hands raised. Stacks tanks roll through the wreckage, crushing barbed wire and abandoned guns under their tracks. The valley smells of cordite, olive oil, and blood. Rommel gets the news at 0830 in his command bus. He's just finished a field dressing on a shrapnel wound to his thigh when Bayerline bursts in. They've broken through at Guettar. Stacks tanks are in the town. The 21st Panzer is in full retreat. Rommel doesn't flinch. He limps to the map, fingers tracing the blue arrows that now point straight into his rear. Pull the 10th Panzer back immediately. We'll form a new line at Wadi Akrit. And get me Kasserine on the radio, I need Luftwaffe support or we lose the whole corps. He pauses, staring at the map. The American advance has been faster than any he's seen since France. Patton isn't just attacking, he's devouring. And the man isn't stopping. Outside, a dust storm is rising, blotting out the sun. Rommel watches it through the canvas flap, expression unreadable. He warned us, he mutters. And we didn't listen. March 30th, 1943. 1,430 hours. Wadi Akrit defensive line, southern Tunisia. The sky is the color of scorched steel. Heat shimmers rise from the cracked earth like ghosts fleeing the battlefield. German engineers have worked miracles in 48 hours, anti-tank ditches deepened, Teller mines laid in overlapping patterns, 88mm flak guns dug into their axles, their long barrels leveled at the western approaches. Behind them, the battered remnants of the 10th and 21st Panzer Divisions wait in hull-down positions, crews sweating inside steel ovens, eyes fixed on the horizon. Rommel stands in the forward observation post, a shallow trench roofed with camouflage netting, binoculars steady despite the tremor in his wounded leg. The desert fox is thinner now, the lines around his eyes deeper. Malaria and exhaustion have carved him, but the mind remains a razor. He has chosen this ground carefully. The Wadi is a natural choke point. If the Americans want to reach the coastal plain and link up with Montgomery, they must pass here. At 14:45 the first dust cloud appears, low, wide, and moving fast. American reconnaissance jeeps crest the distant ridge, pause, then vanish again. Rommel lowers the glasses, he's probing, he tells Bayerline beside him. He won't come straight. Not this time. He's right that AT 1510, American artillery opens, not the rolling barrage Rommel expects, but precise, surgical concentrations. Shells slam into the German gun pits, smoke rounds first, then high explosive. The 88s reply, their deep-throated booms rolling across the valley like thunder. One American battery is silenced almost immediately. Another takes a direct hit and burns, then the tanks appear. Not in a single mass, but in three separate thrusts, one straight down the road, the feint, one hooking wide to the north through broken ground, and the third, most dangerous, sliding south along the base of Jebel El Meida, using dead ground and olive groves for cover. Patton has split his armor like fingers closing on a throat. Rommel's voice is calm, almost admiring. He's learned. Fast. The northern hook hits first. Combat Command B of the 1st Armored Division, under Colonel Clarence C. Benson, smashes into the flank of the 164th Light Africa Division. German infantry, already worn thin by weeks of retreat, cannot hold. Benson's Shermans roll over the positions, machine guns sweeping the trenches. German anti-tank guns claim a dozen American tanks, but the line buckles. Simultaneously, the southern thrust, led by the freshly arrived 899th Tank Destroyer Battalion with its new M10 Wolverines, slides behind a low ridge and opens fire at 800 yards. The 75mm guns speak in rapid sequence. A string of Panzer IVs erupts in flames, their crews bailing out and running. The German counter-battery fire is fierce, but scattered. They're fighting in 3 directions now. Rommel orders the 10th Panzer to counterattack the center thrust, the obvious road push. 40 Mark IIIs and IVs surge forward in textbook German fashion, wedge formation, guns firing on the move. They meet the 601st Tank Destroyer Battalion head-on. The American M3 75mm guns are outranged, but the destroyers are faster, more agile. They backpedal, firing, then advance again. It becomes a deadly dance of steel and fire. Wreckage litters the Wadi floor within minutes. At 16:30 the center collapses. Rommel sees it happen from the observation post. American infantry, Big Red 1 soldiers under Colonel Darby, pour through the gap, bayonets fixed, screaming. German troops, exhausted and outnumbered, begin to surrender in droves. White flags appear along the line like sudden snow. Rommel's radio operator hands him the headset. Kesselring's voice crackles through the static. Feldmarschall, the line is broken. You must withdraw now or lose the entire army. Rommel doesn't answer immediately. He watches a lone American Sherman crest the ridge directly ahead, 3 white stars painted on the glassy, GSP, in bold letters. The tank halts. The commander's hatch opens. A figure in a helmet with general stars stands up, binoculars raised toward Rommel's position. For a heartbeat, across 2 miles of smoke and fire, the 2 commanders regard each other. Rommel lowers his own glasses. His voice, when he speaks, is quiet. Order general withdrawal. We fall back to Enfidaville. Tell the men, we will fight again. He turns away from the view. The Desert Fox walks slowly back to his staff car, limping, shoulders bowed for the first time in the campaign. Behind him, the American tanks continue their relentless advance, engines roaring, dust rising like a brown tidal wave. 3 weeks earlier, he had warned his staff. Now the prophecy was fulfilled. April 7, 1943. 1,100 hours. Enfidaville Line, Northern Tunisia. Axis Rear Headquarters. The command bus is gone. In its place stands a small, hastily camouflaged tent pitched in the lee of a rocky outcrop. Dust coats everything: maps, radios, the faces of the staff officers who still stand when Rommel enters. He limps heavily now, the leg wound has become infected, and malaria burns through him in waves. Yet he refuses the stretcher the doctors keep offering. Not yet. Inside the tent, the air is thick with the smell of instant coffee, cigarette smoke, and defeat. The large situation map on the easel shows the entire Tunisian front in stark clarity, Montgomery's 8th Army grinding forward from the south, the British 1st Army pressing from the west, and now, cutting like a fresh scar across the center, Patton's 2 Corps, driving north with relentless momentum. Rommel studies the blue arrows that represent American armor. They have covered nearly 200 miles in 3 weeks. Supply lines stretch thin behind them, yet the advance never slows. He traces one finger along the path that leads straight to the coastal road at Enfidaville, the last defensible position before Tunis itself. Bayerlein stands beside him, voice low. Herr Feldmarschall, Kesselring insists we hold here until the end. Reinforcements are promised, new panzers, fresh troops from Italy. Rommel gives a short, bitter laugh that ends in a cough. Reinforcements. Always the promise of reinforcements. He turns away from the map. We have been promising ourselves victory since Alamein. The promise is finished. He steps outside into blinding sunlight. A group of Afrika Korps veterans, dusty, bearded, eyes hollow, snap to attention as he passes. Many are barefoot, their boots have long since disintegrated. They do not cheer. They simply watch him with the quiet respect of men who know the end is near and still believe in their commander. Rommel stops beside a burned-out Panzer III, its turret ring blackened, main gun drooping like a broken limb. He places one hand on the scorched steel. For a long moment he is silent, then, quietly, almost to himself, he was right. That American. He came, and he destroyed us. Far to the south, at the same hour, Patton stands atop a dune overlooking the Guettar Valley. His helmet is off, the wind ruffles silver hair. Below him, columns of Shermans and half-tracks roll north in perfect order, dust plumes rising like victory banners. Infantry march beside the tanks, rifles slung, helmets pushed back, some even whistling that he lowers his field glasses and turns to General Bradley, who has just arrived to take formal command of 2 corps. Patton's voice is rough from days of shouting orders over engine noise. "Brad, you take the corps. Keep them moving. Don't let up. The Krauts are breaking, give them one more hard shove and they'll run all the way to the sea." Bradley nods. "And you, George?" Patton smiles, thin, tired, satisfied. "I'm going back to Morocco. Eisenhower wants me to start planning the next show." He jerks a thumb over his shoulder toward Sicily on the invisible horizon. "But I'll be watching this one from the map room. Make sure Rommel remembers my name." Bradley salutes. Patton returns it, crisp, theatrical, then climbs into his command car. As the vehicle pulls away, dust swirling in its wake, he glances back once at the advancing army he forged in 3 brutal weeks. Somewhere in the distance, artillery speaks again. The war goes on, but in Tunisia, the prophecy has been fulfilled, the desert fox has been hunted down, the American has proven him right. And if you haven't already, subscribe to WW2 Battlefields and turn on notifications. We are dedicated to rescuing stories like Patton's lightning counteroffensive from the dusty footnotes of history. Every week, we dive into the archives to bring you tales of impossible courage, tactical brilliance, and ordinary men who did extraordinary things on the battlefields of World War II. Now, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us. Where are you watching from today? Did someone in your family serve in the Pacific? Just let us know you're here. You're not just a viewer, you're part of the community keeping the memory of these warriors alive. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering.